What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Collider Studio, presented by Saratoga Springwater. I have the pleasure of doing an interview with the folks behind one of my most anticipated films of the festival, the team behind Eileen. Congratulations. I already said this to you before, but even though I didn't see your movie, it's special to make a movie and to get to premiere it at a festival. So wholeheartedly, congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
So I know a little about Eileen. The book readers know about Eileen, but some of our viewership might not know anything about the story. I'm sure you're doing this a lot, Ottessa. Can you please give us a brief synopsis of what Eileen is about?
Oh, God. You know, I was asking Luke, what's this movie about? So Eileen takes place in a small town in coastal New England in 1964. And it's the story of a young woman named Eileen who finds herself, or rather puts herself in a position of, sorry, this is why it's getting harder. Somebody please do this.
It's really about infatuation. It's about finding another. It's about a character who's so alone. Now look at me, I'm explaining her book, I'm gonna be hated. Ottessa has so masterfully written a book about a character.
I feel like we should try the test of like one sentence each until we give a full synopsis. I'm just kidding, you don't have to do that.
Well, can I say, having seen the film, I do think it's a film about triggers.
It's a good tease, I like that.
Good, I'm glad you like it.
Ottessa, I'm sorry to put more pressure on you, but I have
No, it's my fault.
I have a two-part question about adapting a book to film, because that can be a very challenging process. So having gone through it now, what one piece of advice would you give to another author about to go through that process for the first time? But then also, what is maybe a misconception about the experience of adapting your own source material to film?
I don't know if I know of a misconception. I'd have to hear what other people think and then figure out that they're wrong. But what I would say is collaboration is key. It's vital. As the author of a novel, just necessarily you need to see it through a very specific lens. And when you're adapting it into film, that lens is the camera. And you have to think like a cinematographer and a director, and you have to think like the character, and you have to think like the character 10 years ago, and you have to think like a writer. Collaborating with people who can help melt away the limits of your singular perspective and offer other ways of seeing your project is, crucial.
The way you describe it makes it sound like such like a creatively fulfilling and exciting experience. I love that.
It has been, so much so that I can't describe it.
It's fair enough. Ottessa and Luke, I am curious about your experience shifting into film, because the 1-2 punch of Causeway and now having a film premiere at Sundance, I mean, it's a pretty big deal and a pretty strong entrance into this sector of entertainment.
Yeah, we planned it that way. Luke, do you want to comment?
What's the question?
What inspired the shift into film, especially with two productions like these?
I don't know if I can answer that other than, for me, opportunity came, and it's so exciting to collaborate with Ottessa. She's, such a singular mind. She's so facile, and for us to get to channel our humanity and our experiences into a common vision and to do the back and forth of a really juicy collaboration is something I would never walk away from.
William, I'm coming your way now. I was reading the production notes. There's something in there that caught my eye that I really like. You said, we've taken a risk with the storytelling, and then you went on to say, we've worked hard to create a participatory psychological thriller. I got two questions about that. First, with the risky element of it, what part of this would you say felt like the biggest risk and the most challenging to convey to people like producers, financiers, et cetera, in order for them to understand that it was a risk well worth taking?
Well, I mean, the material is not everyone's cup of tea. I mean, I think it's my cup of tea. I think it's exactly the sort of stories that I'm drawn to read in books and watch on screen. It's dark. It's at times strange because Eileen has this vivid inner life, and we wanted to represent that visually. But again, it's risky territory because people, there's a tendency to want to play safe. oftentimes, especially in a very difficult market for cinema at the moment. And so that is why it's important that we can make this film independently, because it gave us the freedom to do that. I also think when I mentioned risk, what I enjoy seeing very much is actors taking risks on screen, and you have to create an environment where that can happen. And the only way you can do that is if you build trust. And I like to think that the environment we had was trustful, and it allowed them to take a risk. And, ultimately, when actors take a risk on screen, they put themselves in your hands and the hands of the editor, because they're handing over something and they will trust you to make it work. So I'm just grateful that these guys did that. I'm happy that we had that set up for the film, and I think audiences will enjoy seeing that tonight when they see the film for the first time.
I'm not going to forget about my second part, but I want to follow up and throw this to the cast. What is something about William as an actor's director and a leader that made you feel like you could take those big swings and risks while making Eileen?
Because he knows how to have a good laugh. So if you mess up or make a fool of yourself, you can just laugh it off with Will and then move on to the next thing.
I think sometimes when you meet someone who's really nice, you kind of brace yourself and you wait for, well, when's the other shoe going to drop? Who are they really? And I can say, with a certain degree of independent, low-budget cinema authority, the shoe never dropped. Will was the same person throughout, no matter how much stress was coming at us, no matter how much pressure, and very, very real pressure to move on through a shot. He somehow body blocked all of it and created a completely safe environment for us to have as much time as we needed to be able to feel safe to take those risks. And so the longer that went on, the more I trusted him. But I trusted him from what I saw in Lady Macbeth. There was something, you just used the word humanity. There's such a deep sort of throb of humanity that runs through it, and in some very complicated characters. And to be able to hold someone, in particular a young woman, in her glory and her complication and her ugliness, it really, it made me feel very switched on, and I was very excited to see what happened next with this one.
It's a beautiful answer. Shea, you want to follow that up?
I'm overwhelmed. That was a beautiful answer. Beautiful.
I'm not going to forget about my second part, because I like how you describe it as participatory, and whether it's a psychological thriller or any genre of movie, I feel like movies should always have that feeling.
Yes, I mean, and it's surprising that it doesn't. And I mean, if I could just if I could simplify what I mean by that, it's, I want an audience to lean in. And I think the way you do that is by including them in the storytelling, getting them to ask questions, who's this? What's happening? What are they feeling? What's going on here? That sort of. And I think that is in the writing, it's in the performance, it's in the cut, because, a lot of the edit was about pulling information out so that an audience would have to work to discover. And that's what I mean by participatory cinema. They're the films I love.
It's definitely one of my favorite qualities of film in general. Shea, I'm forcing you to answer this one first, but everybody in the cast, feel free to chime in on this. I could talk about the value of a good scene partner all day long. So can each of you name a time on set when a scene partner did something that helped you access something in your own character that you wouldn't have been able to without them?
I felt a lot of that with Thomasin. You take these characters on because they scare you a lot of times, and you don't know if you're going to be able to figure them out, or if you do, actually. And that's what they were saying about Will, is that when I would get lost, he would be able to bring, some clarity to the character. Same with Thomasin. She possesses, this is a very difficult thing to do in acting, is to be in the moment at all times in a scene, because everyone thinks that when they call action, you can action between action and cut, but she's always present in giving you, no matter if I drop the mic, she doesn't look like I didn't drop, she picks it up. You know what I mean? And so I felt many times. I mean, one time we had a scene by the fire that was just, it's a tricky 5-page, two-hander, and she was just so present in that, but many examples of it.
Doesn't surprise me to hear any of that. How about for you two? A time a scene partner helped you reach something in your own character?
Well, I'd like to talk about one of the most difficult scene partners I have ever had, which was on this film, which was the cat. Now, as anybody who's ever made a film, or especially an independent film, knows that there are passages in the day in which you have an exact amount of time to get a shot. You must get the shot and you must move on, or it just turns into a nightmare for everybody on every level. We needed my character to open a door while getting attacked by a cat. And this cat, who's very sweet and who I'd spent a great deal of time with bonding, so please don't come at me, PETA, and everybody, because I love animals, and I treated this cat with the utmost respect. This cat decided she didn't want to act in this exact moment. And we really needed her. And I turned to her and I said, on behalf of the film, I'm going to make you do what your character would be doing in this moment, whether or not you like it. So I'm going to be gentle, but I'm letting you know I am going to give you your performance. And we did the scene, and I made the cat look like it was attacking me. And the cat got so angry with me, and I think so offended, that I had told her how to act, that she went at me for every other shot. And I was very proud of her. And I think that she really let me access the kind of the tension between the two of us. And so I was very grateful that even though we didn't start out in the best way, we ultimately went on a journey together and wound up giving each other a lot more than either of us bargained for.
Great, it went both ways. You brought something out of the cat that the cat couldn't access on their own.
And she brought something out in me, too.
And Peter was there, right? Peter was there.
Peter was there.
All right, Thomasin, you're up.
How do I follow up on that? Come on. That's so unfair. I think I've got two examples of like actors playing off each other, or like something being drawn out of me that otherwise wouldn't have been drawn out if it weren't for Annie or Shea being my scene partner. I think one of those scenes is a scene in the bar where it's and I don't want to give too much away, but it's kind of a pivotal scene in this film for our relationship, and I think a lot of what I brought to Eileen's and Rebecca's relationship was true to our real life relationship. So I've kind of mentioned a bit before, but I've always been a bit of like a shy mover and dancer, and Annie had to get onto the dance floor and just like do these incredible moves that were true of the 60s and looked like she was having a good time, which she was. And she was kind of drawing me in, drawing this like shy kind of like awkwardness out of me, which only came out because she was there, kind of te waka, pulling it out of me. So I think that. And also, I think reading the script, I didn't, it's really easy to see the hatred that is between Jim and Eileen, but it's not easy to see that the love that is also there between them, this kind of combative love that they have. And Shea helped me find that love, because, relationships between parents and children are always very complicated. So it wasn't just one thing. It wasn't just headbutting and hating each other. There was something deeper to it, and Shea allowed that to be a thing.
Can I add just one thing, because you just helped me remember something, and I'd like to, this is going to be weird, but I'd like to contradict an answer I gave in another interview where where I said that I was asked what Eileen means for Rebecca, and I said I wasn't sure Eileen necessarily means that much to Rebecca, because Rebecca's like a serial monologuer and she's always thinking about herself. But I remembered in that scene, your vulnerability actually was one of the first times Eileen becomes real for Rebecca. And one of those things, and that is one of their first real moments where Rebecca's fully present and she's not just performing in front of someone. Cool memory.
I feel like embarrassed. I feel like I'm going red talking about these scenes.
It's because the set feels sacrosanct, right? And like it feels so strange inviting people into it, and will you understand it, or are you just going to make fun of us?
Going back to what you said about it not being everyone's cup of tea, if something is everyone's cup of tea, I probably find it real boring. So I'm here for the challenge. I have to wind down with you soon. Ottessa, I wanted to throw another one your way. Being the person who originated the story, and you were talking about it earlier, about how the story goes through a transformation from stage to stage to stage when filmmaking, ultimately in the finished product, what surprised you most about your own story and how it turned out?
You know, I always wonder, like, do stand-up comedians want to laugh at their own jokes? This movie, like, what surprises me is I feel like this is just this completely different entity, apart from the idea that I had in 2011 for the novel. It totally has a life of its own, and it feels really, really alive and managed to move me, even when I knew exactly what was going to happen at every moment. Not in every performance. It moved me deeply.
I'm so excited. I have no transition for this. We always like to ask about some upcoming projects. I'm just very excited for Sesame Street and to see what that turned out to be. I have two questions about that. If we could,
It hasn't happened yet. I hope it does.
if that's the case, if you could answer this. If you don't want to, it's totally fine. But you've stayed attached to that with many delays for a long period of time. You are very, very busy, and oftentimes when that happens, someone drops out. So what is it that makes you want to stay to it, stick with it, and hopefully see it through to fruition if it happens one day?
Oh, fear. No. Well, I mean, I don't really make movies that I don't love. And even if it's a strange love, even if it's a love that doesn't make sense to other people, and even, by the way, if the final product isn't in any way what I thought it was going to be, if it doesn't spark something, I don't think I can do it. And so when you read something and you're genuinely charmed, or it's something, or delighted, or it brings you joy, or it's something that you want to share with others, it's really hard to step away from things like that move you authentically. And and this is a funny business. Like, movies take 20 years to get made, and there is something really, really satisfying about sticking with certain things. And there is something really great about looking out and saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. For like 8 years, I was the only person who understood this. And and all those people who had my back believed in me. And so it's a wonderful story. It doesn't always work out. Sometimes 8 years later, you're just like, I think it's time to call it. It's a mixed thing. And I'm really lucky that so far I've been able to have a career in this industry. So I've had all sorts of different experiences. I feel like I'm rambling, and I'm just going to put the mic down. Bye.
Knowing someone believes in a project to that extent will always up my interest more so than anything. So the fact that you feel that way about it still leaves me hyped about it.
But I also want to say that what we do is highly experimental. And what you're saying about if everyone's going to love everything, then you can question whether or not enough risks were taken, or whether or not you played it safe to kind of appeal to the widest possible audience. And if you are interested in filmmaking as a sort of experimental version of art, there's a really good chance that it's not going to work. And it's a really big ask of audiences to say, I know, please keep coming back. Because when it hits, we all know what it means. But it does mean that sometimes you have to eat some failure, and that's cool too.
Keep taking those chances, even if it involves some failure. It keeps me on my toes, keeps me excited, and it keeps me caring about what you all make. Congratulations, Eileen. Again, I cannot wait to see this film. Thank you for being here, too, and sharing some of your experience with our audience. To everybody out there, you keep an eye out for Eileen as well, and stay tuned. We'll have more from Sundance 2023 for you very soon.